Imagine waking up one day but something feels off. Not wrong, not alarming, just hollow. You go through your familiar morning rituals, brushing your teeth, checking your phone, dressing for work or school, but everything feels dim, like watching your life through frosted glass. You laugh when expected, fill the silence with small talk, scroll endlessly, check likes, share opinions, yet none of it touches the core of you. It's all motion, no meaning. You smile but you can't remember the last time you felt joy. You speak but nothing that comes out feels like your voice. You work endlessly but the reward evaporates the moment it comes. And somewhere inside you sense an uncomfortable truth: you're starving. Not for food, not even for love exactly, but for something deeper, something nameless and vast. A kind of existential nutrition your soul no longer receives. You wonder, why does everything I do feel performative? Why does my life, on paper so full, feel so desperately vacant? The modern world has given you more choices, more information, more connectivity than any generation before you. But with that abundance has come another ghostly companion, a growing, quiet emptiness. They call it the empty self. The term sounds abstract, like something from a professor's textbook or a wellness podcast, but you know what it is even if you can't name it. It's that aching void behind the smile at dinner parties. It's the exhaustion after hours of doom scrolling or binge watching a show you barely cared about. It's the subtle panic you feel in silence, in solitude, in your own company. And the strangest paradox? Even with more access to knowledge, more books, more videos, more gurus, more therapy, more self-care, more mindfulness, we feel increasingly abandoned by any real sense of self. What? You weren't born empty. As a child, you possessed a raw instinct to explore, to feel deeply, to be fully here. A blade of grass could fascinate you. A question could haunt you for days. A moment with a friend could feel eternal. There was no branding to cure it, no algorithm to chase, no need to become anything other than what you already were. But somewhere along the way, that connection fractured. Now, everything is curated, our thoughts groomed for virality, our moods adjusted for mass approval. 10-second dopamine hits have replaced meaningful moments. We measure success not in peace or purpose, but in metrics. And even when we try to rebel, through spiritual rituals, therapy quotes, alternative lifestyles, it often feels like we're simply changing costumes inside the same hollow play. Have you ever sat still and asked yourself, who am I beneath all the masks? Beneath the titles, achievements, beliefs, traumas, identities? What if the truth is, you no longer know? What if modern life, with all its glittering tools and comforts, needs you to be empty, so it can sell you pieces of a self you've lost? What if the anxiety, the dread, the disconnection you feel aren't glitches in the system? They are the system working as designed. But most terrifying of all, what if the very things you chase in the name of wholeness are quietly feeding the void? You search for meaning online, in content, in causes, in communities, but what you often find is a mimicry of aliveness. You seek love but offer versions of yourself edited through filters and captions. You're told to find yourself, yet at every turn you're only given pre-packaged identities to choose from. You start to wonder, maybe the question isn't, what's wrong with me? Maybe the real question is, what kind of world requires us to hollow ourselves out just to survive in it? Have we become so accustomed to this disconnection that we no longer question it? Or is there still, somewhere inside you, a faint memory, a primal whisper, that things were once different? That you were once whole? You can't shake it. That whisper keeps coming back. In your quietest moments. When the noise dies down. When the phone is off. It brings with it a question more unsettling and more urgent than any you've asked before. What if I'm not living my life, but merely maintaining it? To maintain something implies survival. But you weren't meant only to survive. You were meant to burn, blaze, ache, wonder, be. Yet here you are, afloat in a world that feeds your hunger for meaning with endless distraction. And whether you realize it or not, you're being shaped, day by day, into someone who becomes useful to the system by remaining lost to yourself. So we must ask, where did this emptiness begin? Was it always there? Or was it planted slowly, silently, by a world that no longer values depth? Now it's time to descend beneath the surface, to peel back the layers and uncover the roots of the empty self. This isn't a journey of blame, but of revelation. Because once you see the architecture of the cage, you may just remember what it means to be free. Shall we continue? Section 2, The Hidden Problem and its Psychological/Philosophical Roots. The empty self didn't appear overnight. It wasn't born out of laziness, conscience, or free will, but carefully engineered. Cultivated by deep psychological forces and philosophical shifts that began long before you downloaded your first app, posted your first selfie, or felt alien in a crowd of so-called friends. To understand the hollowing of the soul, we must go backwards, into the dim-lit corners of human evolution, where survival once meant belonging, not broadcasting. Where community, ritual, and shared myths gave people not just tasks, but meaning. But modernity, in its quest for progress, slashed those roots. First came the Enlightenment, a beautiful rebellion against ignorance, yes, but also the beginning of the self-isolation. The idea of God as the defining center crumbled, replaced by human reason. Fate, once held by divine hands, now lay in the trembling grip of the individual. At first it was freeing. Then, it was paralyzing. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, called this the realization of radical freedom. The terrifying moment we understand that with no external authority, we are condemned to be free. Every action, every word, bears the responsibility of meaning. And yet, how can you build authentic meaning when the culture around you teaches you to be everything and nothing? To cope, we splinter ourselves. We fragment. Carl Jung believed that human beings possess not one self, but many archetypes vying for the stage. The persona, the shadow, the anima, the warrior, the child, the sage. The healthy psyche balances these voices. But in modernity, one mask reigns supreme: the persona, the curated self, the presentable self, the visible, acceptable face shown to society. At first, you wear the mask because it helps you adapt. You learn what earns attention, avoids disapproval, gets a job, lands a date, wins applause. But over time, the mask fuses to your skin, and the real self is buried beneath rituals of pretending. You are applauded for your performance, even envied. But inside, there grows a void, a quiet knowing. They don't actually see me. And worse, I'm not even sure I see myself anymore. Arthur Schopenhauer once called human life a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. Pain when we lack what we think we want. Boredom when, having attained it, we find it brought no lasting fulfillment. The algorithm of consumer culture capitalized on this, replacing meaning with novelty, disrupting depth with dopamine. Instead of staring into the dark night of the soul and asking, who am I? We scroll, we shop, we mimic others, we post. Modern psychology often treats these symptoms, anxiety, depression, disconnection, as errors. But what if, as Viktor Frankl proposed, they are signals? Red flares in your consciousness saying, you are not where your soul belongs. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, discovered that those most able to endure unimaginable suffering weren't necessarily the strongest or most knowledgeable, but those who had a why, meaning, a thread of purpose running through their suffering. And yet today many wander without a why. Instead, they're given lifestyles, aesthetic identities, core trends. This is no accident. Aldous Huxley envisioned this in Brave New World, a society distracted into submission. People weren't controlled by force but by pleasure. They were never allowed to feel pain deeply enough to ask the dangerous questions. What they called happiness was merely the absence of discomfort. Is this not where we stand now? We're medicated not only by pharmaceuticals but by constant input, notifications, streaming, endless information. The moment discomfort creeps in, loneliness, regret, even curiosity, something else fills the space before it can root itself into understanding. So the soul remains shallow, the questions unasked, the pain unprocessed, and the self slowly dissolves. And here lies the most potent psychological trap. The more we feel empty, the more we seek to fill ourselves from outside. And the more we seek from outside, the emptier we become. Consumer capitalism and media algorithms co-evolved with our insecurities. They know the game better than we do. You're not sold a product. You're sold an idealized identity. A narrative that promises, if you just add this course, this style, this app, this mindset, you will finally feel whole. But the wholeness never comes. Because it's not found in what is given, but in what is remembered and reclaimed. The self isn't a blank slate. It's a voice you've been trained to ignore. This is the hidden problem. You have confused the voice of the world with the voice of your own soul. And the longer you listen to the world, the quieter your soul becomes. Let that settle. You've been told that to know yourself means to find your passion, brand yourself, optimize your time. Be productive. Be fit. Be lovable. Be confident. Be you. But which you? The you who wants to be safe. The you who's afraid of being deserted. The you who wants likes more than love. There is no clarity when the internal compass has been hijacked by external applause. So we move like ghosts. Ghosts with debit cards, streaming services, mental health awareness, but without the deep work that reconnects us to our inner truth. You don't suffer because you are weak. You suffer because you are sensitive in a world that punishes depth, a world that rewards simulation over sincerity. And that sensitivity, your ache, your question, your longing, that is your proof that something real still flickers inside you. Its voice was never extinguished, only covered by layers of noise. You are not sick. You are not broken. You're responding as any soul would when trapped in a system that feeds your body but starves your being. You're not the error, you are the evidence that soul still rebels against machinery. But the world hides this pain under layers of distractions and diagnoses. It's no longer fashionable to ask the old, burning questions. What is truth? What does it mean to live a good life? What if I have never truly met my real self? So we must now walk deeper into the maze, with eyes wider and heart heavier, to understand how this hidden problem left unchecked doesn't just haunt our personal lives. It shapes entire civilizations, worldviews, and destinies. It affects how we love, how we think, how we raise our children, how we even grieve. This isn't just your story, it's ours. And unless we uncover the unseen consequences, the empty self will become the default self. Do you want to keep going? Section 3, the unseen consequences. There is a peculiar kind of suffering that doesn't scream, it hums beneath the surface of everyday life. It's the kind that doesn't look like crisis, doesn't demand intervention, and rarely gets named. It wears a suit to work, pays bills on time, checks notifications, and dies slowly in silence. This is the suffering of the empty self, and it's everywhere. It's in the eyes of the man who earns 6 figures but can't feel loved. In the influencer with 1 million followers who can't go to sleep without sedation. In the parent who speaks in memes because they've forgotten the vocabulary of wonder. You don't always notice it, not because it's rare, but because it has been normalized. We've quietly accepted numbness as a feature of adulthood. We call it getting used to life. But adaptation is not the same as health. What's happening is something different, something darker. We are hardening against our own humanity. Let's look at how this plays out. First, in relationships. You crave intimacy, yet struggle to truly connect. You want to be truly seen, yet are terrified of being known. So you perform. You present a version of yourself tailored to what you believe will be accepted. But the more you do this, the more affection becomes conditional, tied not to your essence but to your performance. And deep down you know it. So even when you receive love, validation, or praise, it doesn't land. What? Because it was aimed at the mask, not the self. The real you remains untouched, starving for recognition. Over time, a slow cynicism creeps in. You stop believing anyone can love the real you because even you have lost touch with who that is. Do you see how dangerous this becomes? We are forming bonds not between real people, but between avatars of each other. Relationships become mutual projections. And when one person tries to break the performance and show their vulnerable, authentic self, they're often met with confusion, discomfort, or abandonment. So we go back into character. This is how the empty self sabotages our deepest longing, connection. Now look at work. It's no longer just labor, it's identity. We don't ask children, what do you love? We ask them, what do you want to be? As if worth can only be measured in titles. We animate ourselves with productivity hacks, career ladders, passive income dreams. But few stop to ask, to what end? We applaud burnout as ambition. We fetishize hustle. And when we inevitably crack under the pressure, we call it a mental health crisis, when it was a spiritual malnourishment all along. We don't need more productivity. We need more purpose. Because in the hollow self, doing always outruns being. You move, you act, you build, but without inner alignment. So your work, your days, your victories feel eerie, detached, unearned. You win, and feel nothing. What? Because you've been told you should want these things, not because your soul actually does. Modern culture gives you goals that are easy to measure but not to fulfill. It teaches you to pursue excellence, without ever defining wisdom. To chase influence, without ever defining presence. To chase happiness, without ever facing suffering. Now consider decision-making. We increasingly live in environments designed to manipulate your choices without you even knowing. Algorithms do not ask what is meaningful to you. They ask only, what can you not stop clicking on? Your attention, your emotion, your time, these have become commodities. Digital platforms feed on your impulsivity and confusion. Your sense of self is not only fractured, it's being shaped in real time by invisible forces that profit from your emptiness. You think these actions are small, scrolling, liking, sharing, swiping. But every swipe is a tiny vote, not just for what content thrives, but for which version of you survives. We now live with what philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls the transparent self. exposed, constant, performing, seeking affirmation. He suggests we've replaced the pain of repression with the exhaustion of excess. We no longer have taboos, we have burnout. And what's the result? A culture that cannot sit still. A mind that flees boredom like it's death. A people so fragmented they must constantly reinvent themselves just to feel real. This is not evolution. This is psychological erosion dressed as progress. And then there's our spirituality, or lack of it. Many people today say, I'm not religious but I'm spiritual. But often this is a convenient way to sidestep the commitment that true self-inquiry demands. Religion at its core once offered something modern culture can't. A unified narrative about pain, joy, death, community, and transcendence. It gave symbols that mirrored the soul, rituals that bound generations, and stories that penetrated the unconscious. In its absence, the empty self gropes in the dark, seeking meaning in productivity, perfection, romance, fame. But these things cannot contain the size of the soul. So it leaks out. It leaks out in addiction, in numbness, in the anxiety that has no name. And when we go looking for help, we're handed affirmations. A motivational quote, a breathing exercise, a bullet-pointed solution. The pain is not cured, it is managed, postponed, rebranded. We replace transformation with coping. But you cannot cope your way to wholeness. Because this isn't just a crisis of feelings. This is a culture-wide annihilation of the deeper self. And here's where the stakes rise. The empty self is more than a personal problem. It is a societal vulnerability. Because an empty person is easy to manipulate. Easy to sell to, easy to scare, easy to lead. Empty people don't resist, they conform. They don't rebel, they consume meaning pre-packaged, pre-approved, algorithmically distributed. They forget how to think in paradox. They forget how to sit with dissonance. They forget how to wrestle their own darkness. A hollow self does not build nations. It does not raise conscious children. It does not face injustice with courage. It does not birth art that endures. The empty self may exist, but it does not create. So if we continue this path unchecked, the world we inhabit will become more efficient and more soul-dead. We will have sleek devices, fast networks, tailored content, mental health apps, and no memory of who we are beneath them. We will confuse stimulation for wonder, popularity for love, data for wisdom, and soon, we won't even miss what we've lost, because we will no longer remember that something else was possible. But what if an answer still exists? Not in the world out there, but buried in the ruins of the self. Can we rebel against this tide, not by destroying the world around us, but by turning inward with open eyes and a burning hunger to remember? Let's go there next. Let's talk about rebellion, not of anger but of awakening, how to break free from the architecture of absence, and begin to make our way back into depth. Section 4, The Rebellion, How to Break Free. What does it mean to rebel in a world that doesn't chain your body, but colonizes your attention? How do you rise against a system that doesn't beat you down, at least not overtly, but wraps its arms around you with promises, praise, and personalized notifications? This is not a rebellion of fists or flags. It is quiet, internal, sacred. The enemy isn't wearing a uniform, chanting in streets, or kicking down doors. The enemy is the voice inside you that says, don't slow down. Don't question this. Everyone else seems fine. What's wrong with me? But now you understand, that voice isn't you. It was installed by algorithms, by trauma, by a culture that fears self-awareness more than it fears collapse. You rebel simply by remembering who you are before the noise. You rebel by hearing your own soul whisper and choosing to listen. The first step? Stop performing. Pause and let that fully land, because this is where most will turn back. Letting go of performance is terrifying. Your entire world has likely been built around it. It is how you've been validated, hired, chosen, praised, admired. But performance is the currency of the empty self. To break free, you must be willing to lose what was never real to protect what is eternal. You must risk rejection, discomfort, uncertainty. But in that raw, vulnerable space is where the real begins. And here's the beautiful paradox. Only by owning your emptiness can you begin to fill it with truth. This is not self-improvement. This is self-returning. Begin with silence. Not curated wellness retreat silence. Not 10-minute meditation before you scroll again. But actual silence. Long enough for your inner noise to rise and reveal what it's been hiding. At first you will feel panic. Then boredom. Then old shame. Then, if you're patient, clarity. What you feel isn't a breakdown. It's a clearing. The pain you fear is the detox of decades of disconnection. This is where thinkers like Viktor Frankl become more relevant than any motivational speaker. Frankl spoke not of happiness but of meaning. Those who have a why can bear almost any how. You've been handed thousands of how-tos, how to succeed, attract, achieve, hack, optimize. But none of them ask the only question that matters. Why are you here? Not what do you do, but why do you do anything at all? Your true self is not found. It is remembered. Hunted down like a sacred animal hiding behind the thorns of expectation, ego, and fear. You begin to ask dangerous questions. What if the job I do every day violates my integrity? What if the people I surround myself with don't know the real me? What if my sadness isn't a disorder, but a rightful grief for a life I was never meant to live? These are not signs of collapse. These are signs of spiritual awakening. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." Terrifying? Yes. Liberating? Absolutely. No one is coming to build your soul for you. There's no app for what you must face. There's no shortcut to becoming. But look closer, and you'll see that those who've walked this path before you have left signs. They were the mystics, the artists, the depth psychologists, the monks, the rebels of every age who refused to be turned into cogs, mascots, brands. Carl Jung spent decades mapping the terrain of the psyche. He urged people to confront the shadow, those suppressed and disowned parts of ourselves that modern society turns into neuroses. You cannot become whole by being good. You become whole by being real. Healing is not becoming perfect. It is becoming true. This inner rebellion involves stripping away identities given to you, the achiever, the victim, the hero, the pleaser, until all that remains is presence. And what do you fill that cleared self with? Stillness, slowness, meaning that cannot be broadcast. Ritual. Yes, ritual. Not in the religious, dogmatic sense, but in the ancient, human sense. Modernity mocks ritual. It repackages it into content. But ritual is how the soul remembers it's part of something larger. Some examples? Writing letters you never send. Lighting a candle for your past self. Walking through forests not to clear your mind, but to lose it. Speaking aloud your truth in an empty room. These may seem small, but they are seismic. Because for the empty self, every genuine act of presence is an act of defiance. And then the most radical step of all, embracing solitude. Not loneliness, solitude. The space not filled by another's gaze, opinion, or attention. The fertile void where symbols rise. Where the self gains texture. Where you finally hear your own voice. Nietzsche once said, "He who cannot find truth in himself will find emptiness everywhere." And this is what we've been running from. Modern culture's greatest trick is making solitude feel like failure. If you're not visible, you are not valuable. But the soul was never meant to be visible. It was meant to be known. And when you begin to know it, life shifts. You stop needing to win arguments online. You stop fearing the silence between texts. You stop mistaking ambition for value. And slowly you begin to taste something rare. Not pleasure. Not even comfort. But realness. And with it comes a weight. The heavy beauty of living with full awareness. Yes, it's slower. Yes, it hurts more. Yes, it doesn't always scale. But it nourishes. This rebellion won't be noticed by most. It won't trend. It won't be marketable. It looks like simplicity in a world drowning in excess. Like reverence in a world obsessed with irony. It looks like honesty. It is the soul returning to ground after being untethered too long. You don't need to quit the world. You just need to stop letting it define you. Your freedom begins not when you push the world away, but when you stop giving it the authority to name you. What returns in that sacred space is not a new identity, but an old truth. You were never empty. The self was never gone. It was just buried beneath 1,000 borrowed names. This, not escape, not performance, is the real revolution. And yet, even this is not the final truth. There's something deeper. Something the mystics, philosophers, and poets dared to glimpse only in the quietest hours. Beneath ego, beneath even the soul itself. The final, terrifying, liberating realization. Shall we go there? Section 5. The ultimate truth. The final, most powerful realization. There's a moment in the middle of every authentic journey, spiritual, psychological, existential, where everything you've believed begins to collapse. The roles, the names, the dreams you inherited, the self you meticulously constructed. It all begins to dissolve. And at first it feels like death. Because in a way, it is. But stay still long enough in that undoing, that sacred deconstruction, and you begin to see something astonishing. There is no self to be rescued, there is only presence to be remembered. This is the final truth. Not that the world made you empty. Not that you must rebuild some grand version of yourself through healing or hustle. But that even the very idea of the self is a construction, a scaffolding meant to give you stability in a chaotic world. For centuries, Eastern philosophies have whispered what modern psychologists are just beginning to glimpse, that what we call the self is not a fixed thing but a fluid process, not a noun but a verb, not a treasure to be found but a myth to be seen through. And this changes everything. The Buddhists call it anatta, the doctrine of no self, that beneath all layers of perception and identity, there is no enduring core. No fixed me to protect, repair, or glorify. At first, the Western mind resists. But if I let go of the self, won't I disappear? Yes and no. You won't disappear. You'll dissolve into something larger. What takes its place isn't nothingness. It's aliveness. It's that raw, immediate pulse of being that sits beneath the story. Nothing you own. Nothing you perform. Nothing you narrate. Just the eternal awareness watching it all. When you stare directly into the heart of the empty self and see through it, not around it, through it, you realize there was never anything to fix, only illusions to stop clinging to. The system wanted you to act like a brand. So you began branding your pain. You measured self-worth with productivity because the market trained you to think like product. You chased authenticity by curating it. But all along, you were never a brand, you were presence, observing the game. Now, here's where the deeper paradox emerges. You had to become empty just to see how false the search for fullness was. Because without the collapse, you would have kept chasing better versions of Instagram-worthy enlightenment. You would have improved the mask, not dropped it. This emptiness wasn't a detour. It was the door. And those who reach this threshold often feel something strange: grief. Grief for the time lost trying to fix a self that didn't need fixing. Grief for the friendships based on masks. Grief for the world that still buys the lie. But something else grows behind that grief, quietly, like green under ash. Not the piece of a completed journey, but the kind that comes from seeing through the illusion of the journey itself. You begin to exist without needing a reason. You move not because of pressure or hope, but because being itself becomes sacred again. You laugh without trying to be likable. You cry without turning it into content. You act without needing applause. This is not nihilism. Nihilism believes nothing matters. This is its opposite. This is the quiet thunder of discovering that everything matters deeply, but for reasons language can never fully carry. The empty self's final mistake was believing it needed to find meaning. But meaning isn't found, it's lived. It doesn't reside in grand philosophies or finished truths. It echoes in small, luminous moments. The way sunlight hits the dust in your kitchen. The sound of your breath before sleep. The look in your friend's eyes when they realize you aren't pretending. The silence between the notes when your favorite song fades. Those unnoticed seconds are the revelation. You don't arrive at truth like a prize. You surrender into it, piece by piece, by becoming wildly, irrevocably present. This is what the philosophers all circled around in different words and systems. Nietzsche called it becoming who you are, not as a fixed identity but as a risk, a dance with becoming itself. The mystics called it union, the diminishing of ego until only being remains. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of recognizing that the self is not just the ego, but the vast, collective, symbolic field of humanity, nature, myth. But underneath all frameworks is this: you are not a self in search of meaning. You are meaning unfolding moment by moment. And to realize this is not to become invincible. It is to become vulnerable in the right way. No longer protecting the ego, but protecting your capacity to feel. And no longer defending your ideas, but honoring your willingness to lose them. And no longer chasing a future self, but inhabiting the only thing that ever truly existed. This, here, now. And when you live from this space rather than toward it, everything shifts. Your relationships change, not because you find better people, but because you stop demanding performance from them. Your work changes, not because you quit your job, but because you no longer use it to define your worth. Your grief changes, not because it disappears, but because you no longer believe you must fix it. You let it wash through you, and find it leaves you more whole, not less. Your joy becomes quieter, more solid, less like a high, more like a hum. You realize liberation is not some cosmic event. It's the simple act of no longer needing to be anything other than aware, awake, and real. And this is the self beyond the empty self. Not fuller, not more constructed, but emptier of illusion, fuller of presence. That is the deepest rebellion in the modern world. Not to become somebody, but to finally dare to be nobody who is fully here. So now we come full circle. You began this journey sensing a hunger you couldn't name, and now you stand on the edge of something vast and wordless. Look around. Not out there, but in here. You are not lacking. You are limitless awareness mistakenly wearing a costume of absence. You were never broken, just buried. You don't need to be found, just remembered. And in that remembrance you may see what all awakened souls eventually see. You are not the emptiness. You are the one who was aware of it all along. Carry that truth, not as a slogan, but as a presence. And when life begins to feel hollow again, as it inevitably will, don't panic. Smile. It means the illusion is wearing thin. And you, dear soul, are waking up again. Section 5. The ultimate truth. The final, most powerful realization. Word count, 990 words. There's a moment in the middle of every authentic journey, spiritual, psychological, existential, where everything you've believed begins to collapse. The roles, the names, the dreams you inherited, the self you meticulously constructed. It all begins to dissolve. And at first it feels like death, because in a way, it is. But stay still long enough in that undoing, that sacred deconstruction, and you begin to see something astonishing. There is no self to be rescued, there is only presence to be remembered. This is the final truth. Not that the world made you empty. Not that you must rebuild some grand version of yourself through healing or hustle. But that even the very idea of the self is a construction, a scaffolding meant to give you stability in a chaotic world. For centuries, Eastern philosophies have whispered what modern psychologists are just beginning to glimpse, that what we call the self is not a fixed thing but a fluid process. Not a noun but a verb. Not a treasure to be found but a myth to be seen through. And this changes everything. The Buddhists call it anatta, the doctrine of no self. That beneath all layers of perception and identity, there is no enduring core. No fixed me to protect, repair, or glorify. At first, the Western mind resists. But if I let go of the self, won't I disappear? Yes and no. You won't disappear, you'll dissolve into something larger. What takes its place isn't nothingness. It's aliveness. It's that raw, immediate pulse of being that sits beneath the story. Nothing you own, nothing you perform, nothing you narrate. Just the eternal awareness watching it all. When you stare directly into the heart of the empty self and see through it, not around it, through it, you realize there was never anything to fix. Only illusions to stop clinging to. The system wanted you to act like a brand. So you began branding your pain. You measured self-worth with productivity because the market trained you to think like product. You chased authenticity by curating it. But all along, you were never a brand, you were presence, observing the game. Now here's where the deeper paradox emerges. You had to become empty just to see how false the search for fullness was. Because without the collapse, you would have kept chasing better versions of Instagram-worthy enlightenment. You would have improved the mask, not dropped it. This emptiness wasn't a detour. It was the door. And those who reach this threshold often feel something strange. Grief. Grief for the time lost trying to fix a self that didn't need fixing. Grief for the friendships based on masks. Grief for the world that still buys the lie. But something else grows behind that grief, quietly, like green under ash. Not the piece of a completed journey, but the kind that comes from seeing through the illusion of the journey itself. You begin to exist without needing a reason. You move not because of pressure or hope, but because being itself becomes sacred again. You laugh without trying to be likable. You cry without turning it into content. You act without needing applause. This is not nihilism. Nihilism believes nothing matters. This is its opposite. This is the quiet thunder of discovering that everything matters deeply, but for reasons language can never fully carry. The empty self's final mistake was believing it needed to find meaning. But meaning isn't found, it's lived. It doesn't reside in grand philosophies or finished truths. It echoes in small, luminous moments. The way sunlight hits the dust in your kitchen. The sound of your breath before sleep. The look in your friend's eyes when they realize you aren't pretending. The silence between the notes when your favorite song fades. Those unnoticed seconds are the revelation. You don't arrive at truth like a prize. You surrender into it, piece by piece, by becoming wildly, irrevocably present. This is what the philosophers all circled around in different words and systems. Nietzsche called it becoming who you are, not as a fixed identity but as a risk, a dance with becoming itself. The mystics called it union, the diminishing of ego until only being remains. Carl Jung called it individuation, The process of recognizing that the self is not just the ego, but the vast, collective, symbolic field of humanity, nature, myth. But underneath all frameworks is this: you are not a self in search of meaning. You are meaning unfolding moment by moment. And to realize this is not to become invincible. It is to become vulnerable in the right way. No longer protecting the ego, but protecting your capacity to feel. And no longer defending your ideas, but honoring your willingness to lose them. And no longer chasing a future self, but inhabiting the only thing that ever truly existed. This, here, now. And when you live from this space rather than toward it, everything shifts. Your relationships change, not because you find better people, but because you stop demanding performance from them. Your work changes, not because you quit your job, but because you no longer use it to define your worth. Your grief changes, not because it disappears, but because you no longer believe you must fix it. You let it wash through you, and find it leaves you more whole, not less. Your joy becomes quieter, more solid, less like a high, more like a hum. You realize liberation is not some cosmic event. It's the simple act of no longer needing to be anything other than aware, awake, and real. And this is the self beyond the empty self. Not fuller, not more constructed, but emptier of illusion, fuller of presence. That is the deepest rebellion in the modern world. Not to become somebody, but to finally dare to be nobody who is fully here. So now we come full circle. You began this journey sensing a hunger you couldn't name, and now you stand on the edge of something vast and wordless. Look around. Not out there, but in here. You are not lacking. You are limitless awareness mistakenly wearing a costume of absence. You were never broken, just buried. You don't need to be found, just remembered. And in that remembrance you may see what all awakened souls eventually see. You are not the emptiness, you are the one who was aware of it all along. Carry that truth, not as a slogan, but as a presence. And when life begins to feel hollow again, as it inevitably will, don't panic. Smile. It means the illusion is wearing thin. And you, dear soul, are waking up again.